So Sherman, I've been a certified trainer over 20 years, and I am not the trainer that grew up flat stomach, small waist, and shape with a six-pack. I had to work for it. Listen, want to come on here and talk to you all about something that actually drives me a little crazy, because a lot of people who have some kind of knowledge about fitness, health and fitness and exercise, love folks love to always throw out caloric deficit as the answer for everything. You know, when it comes to fat loss, people throw out caloric deficit as a catch-all for the universal reason as to why some people aren't seeing results with their fat loss. And every time I, hear somebody immediately resort to that, tells me a lot about that person, in that, number one, they either haven't been a trainer very long, or they just don't know what the hell they're talking about, or they don't understand different body types, or they don't know how to diagnose. Like, you're not even really asking enough questions before you go straight to assuming that the problem is caloric deficit. Like, it's just a catch-all that gets thrown around so much lately. And so there's some other things that could be in play as to why someone is not seeing the results from their workout or their nutrition. So number one, we want to make sure that we distinguish between losing weight and losing fat. Like, I like to talk firmly and consistently about fat loss, not weight loss. You say, well, what's the difference? Well, if you just, for instance, only focused on doing cardio and no weight training, and you have significant weight to lose, you can absolutely run the risk of losing both fat and muscle. And so, if you're someone who has over 20 pounds to lose and you only focus on cardio, you could absolutely wind up losing quote unquote weight. But the goal is fat loss, because here's the thing, you still want to be firm, tight, and toned and sculpted and look good in your clothes and look good in your birthday suit. So caloric deficit being presented as the sole reason why someone isn't losing fat is not always accurate. All right. Like, number one thing that gets overlooked a lot is that if you're not eating enough, then you could still run the risk of not seeing any fat loss. Okay? So your deficit may be too low. Your deficit may be too low. You have to understand this is still a machine, and it requires energy. And if the energy that you're giving this machine isn't enough, then the body will retain and hold on to the fat it has. That can very well happen. Okay, so you have a lot of people who are struggling with fat loss because they just aren't eating enough, because they've heard, oh, I have to, cut calories, and they just heard that and they ran with it and didn't do any kind of homework or due diligence. See, if you're going to even begin to cut calories, you should know how many calories you actually need. I've said this on other videos, but before you cut any calories, Google RMR calculator. And RMR, aka BMR, RMR is your resting metabolic rate. BMR is your basal metabolic rate. And they're pretty much the same thing, okay? But what the value of that information is, once you find that out, it essentially tells you how many calories you need at rest. So before you cut any calories, okay, plug those numbers in. It's like, it's a very simple formula. I mean, at this point, you just plug the numbers in and then they'll do the math for you. But what I'm saying is, you don't want to run the risk of not eating enough, okay? So, because particularly the fitness industry, my industry, we've done a very bad job of being clear and communicating certain messages. And so diet culture is really out of control. And so people hear caloric deficit and they think, okay, eat less, okay? But you still want to make sure that you're eating enough in order to see the results that you're looking for, okay? The second thing is rest. Like, if you've achieved, you cut the calories, whatever, your exercise output is where it needs to be. If you're not getting sleep, you still won't see any results, because if you're not getting sleep, what happens is your cortisol levels, the hormone called cortisol, will be released at too high of levels. The level, let me say that differently. If you don't get enough sleep, your body will keep the elevation of cortisol very high. Like your body will continue to create cortisol at a level that it's not supposed to, okay? And the body thinks it's stress. That's why I keep doing this. Like the body's just like stress, stress, stress. And so the cortisol will continue to be released. And when the body is stressed out, it's not focused on using fat as fuel. The body is only focused on survival. So if the body's only focused on survival, it's not thinking about, okay, let me use this fat as fuel. And now you're going to be nice, firm, tight, and toned from your exercise and your nutrition and all the work you're putting in. It's not. All of those changes occur when we're asleep. You're not actually losing any fat while you're, well, let me say that differently. All the changes that you are experiencing or looking to experience will occur when you're resting. Because when we're in the gym, we're breaking the muscles down. That's why we get sore, because then we create micro tears from the work that we did at the gym. So that's where the soreness comes from. But when we rest and we get sleep, we allow the body to use those energies, use the fat as fuel. It can recuperate and build itself back up stronger. You would give those ligaments, joints, and tendons a rest. And so now, because the body has gotten rest, the cortisol levels come back down, and everybody says, okay, let me use that fat as fuel now. But if you don't get that rest, if you don't get that sleep, cortisol is continuously being produced, and the body doesn't have the opportunity to use the fat as fuel because it's not going to prioritize that over stress. So get your sleep, okay? So that could be a reason why you're already achieved a caloric deficit, but you're not seeing the results. You gotta get your sleep, gotta get your rest, okay? And this coincides with the last thing I just talked about. The third thing is stress. Again, cortisol is a stress hormone. So we wanna look at positive ways to release that stress. Like, so if you have achieved the caloric deficit, but you have a very demanding job, your home life is out of whack, or you got some personal things going on and you can't find relaxation, then again, because of the cortisol being produced in your body, you're not going to be able to see that fat loss. You're not going to be able to see it because the body has to prioritize this stress. So we want to make sure that we're finding positive outlets for that stress. I generally recommend weight training as a great stress relief, but some things, are even more, complicated. And, maybe whether that's counseling and getting some, some professional help, or, some resolving some conflicts that have been, following you around for a long time, whatever it is. But you want to make sure that you find positive outlets for that stress. Again, bring the cortisol levels down. And if you've been in a caloric deficit but stressed out, you're not going to see results. So you want to make sure that you address the stress. Okay? And then the last thing, which they're all very important, but this is often overlooked. You've achieved the caloric deficit and you're exercising, but you're not seeing any real results, or you've hit a plateau. The thing about that is we want to be mindful of because once you get to this point, it starts to matter what your exercise routine consists of. Like if you've been going to the same group exercise class for like 3 or 4 months and you're used to it now, and you don't sweat as much, and it's not as difficult, it's not as challenging as it used to be, you need a new challenge. If you have your workout routine and you've been doing it for 4 months, same reps, same sets, you're used to it, you're acclimated, the body isn't any longer feeling challenged, and when it's not feeling challenged, it won't change. If the body isn't feeling challenged, it won't change. Okay? So you could be exercising consistently, eating properly, caloric deficit, all that good stuff, but the routine that you're doing isn't efficient enough to challenge the body in order for it to transform. So we want to look at the intensity and the exercise selection. Like, what are you doing? Because if you're someone who's looking to lose a significant amount of fat, you're in a caloric deficit, but your whole routine consists of hopping on the elliptical for 20 minutes, doing an inner thigh, outer thigh machine, the ab machine, and then leaving, that's not enough of a challenge once you become more consistent in the gym, because now the body's like, all right, well, that's cool. I need a new challenge. I need to step it up. So, look at what are you actually doing in the gym? Is it challenging you? And again, I want to reemphasize the importance of doing both cardio exercise and weight training. So that could be why you're not seeing results. Like if you're just doing all weights and you're not doing any cardio, you could easily hit a plateau, particularly if you're not engaged in any HIIT or any kind of circuit training or supersets. Like if you're doing 1 set, rest, 1 set, rest, that is not going to be enough over time that your body will continue to change. So you want to make sure that the intensity is there. You also want to make sure your routine itself is put together well enough. So things like, starting with lower body, then working up to the smaller muscle groups, because legs are the largest muscle group in the body. Perhaps you add a few more repetitions, like instead of 10 reps, you go to 12 reps. Or instead of 3 sets, you go to 4 sets. Instead of resting for, 60 to 90 seconds, maybe you cut your rest to 30 to 45 seconds. Or you implement circuit training, where you do 3 or 4 exercises in a row before you take a break. So you may do squats, deadlifts, chin-ups, burpees, take a break. Something of that nature, as opposed to just doing like the squats and then chill for 90 seconds and then go back into it. So when you turn up the intensity of the workout, that also produces a plateau buster. So those are 4 reasons right there, and 4 instances in which the caloric deficit is not the end all be all. There are some other elements that you want to address while you're on your fitness journey, because you don't want to make yourself, you may be frustrated, like, why am I not seeing the results I deserve? I'm doing the damn caloric deficit, but there's other elements that may be at play that may be preventing you from seeing the results that you're looking for. Okay, so watch the vid. I hope you enjoyed the vid, I should say. You already watched it if you got this far. But hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, comment below. Let me know what you thought about the information I shared. Look forward to hearing your feedback. But thank you for watching, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Take care.